President Yoon began his very first day in office this time last year. Not from the presidential grounds of Cheong Wa Dae, but from a government building in Central Seoul, pledging to be closer to the people and communicate openly. He also committed to making South Korea a global pivotal state. To review the president's major goals and initiatives over the past year, we're joined by our top office correspondent, Oh Soo-young. Welcome, Soo-young.
Hi, Tammy.
So let's begin with Yoon's domestic policies. Now, he ushered in to the Yongsan era. That was his first landmark move as president, correct?
Right, you are, Tammy. That was his very first move as president on his very first day. And it was quite a controversial move, actually. But he really did want to close the chapter on South Korea's so-called imperial presidency, where the elected leader rules from the palatial compound detached from the people. He returned the former presidential grounds to the public, and since then it's become quite a tourist hotspot. Also, in a symbolic move last week, he opened up a former US military compound that was closed from the Korean public for about 120 years, launching it as a public garden for children. So the Yongsan era, as it's called, is in a way it really defines President Yoon's push for freedom, openness, and a rules-based order in his domestic policies.
Right. The prosecutor turned president also introduced three major reforms to make the society more fair and just, right?
Right. So his signature domestic policy drive has been the three major reforms of labour, education and pensions as well. And the aim of these reforms is to build a fair and just society as well as a rules-based market-driven economy in order to overcome structural socio-economic issues in South Korea. Now, beginning with labour, the administration is aiming to end illegal activities and what they've called a toxic labour union culture that has promoted systematic nepotism, extortion, coercion and violence, especially in the construction sector. Now, President Yoon has said that such practices have harmed fair employment and also fair compensation for workers, as well as dampening business competitiveness. His zero-tolerance policy, it's really boosted his public approval rating in December when he ordered lorry drivers to go back to work, saying that their strikes were illegal and also obstructing business operations. However, the administration's push to extend the maximum weekly work hours, which is currently capped at 52, has not been as popular with the public. So the president's had to take a backtrack on that policy. Now, coming to education reform and pensions reform, they haven't been as conspicuous or controversial as labour reforms, of course, but they are very much needed as South Korea's shrinking population spells trouble for future productivity. It also means there'll be fewer taxpayers to support the rapidly ageing society. The National Pensions Service Fund is expected to run dry by 2055, according to this year's government estimates.
Right. While these reforms aim to improve the fundamentals, they will take some time to take effect, right?
Right.
Now, in the meantime, what other efforts has President Yoon made to really boost the South Korea's future prospects then?
Right, well, the keyword that we've been hearing time and time again is economic security. It's really procuring the materials and the means of production, as well as the human resources to master crucial technologies of the future. And this really requires building up domestic production capacity, as well as global cooperation and supply chain linkages, especially in 6 key industries. This includes chips, displays, batteries, biotech, feature vehicles, and robotics. Semiconductors and biotech, they've received particular attention as Korea's future cash cows and export markets for the country. And President Yoon, he's been cutting corporate tax, easing industrial regulations and removing red tape to spur private sector investment, innovation and hopefully job creation as well. The government on Monday, they announced a new plan to create a total of 10 special industrial zones by 2027, with each region dedicated to a specific advanced technology, such as artificial intelligence or biotech. Also, to secure the country, the very export-dependent country's future, President Yoon has been actively engaging foreign partnerships, markets, and also MOUs. He's called himself the #1 salesman of Korea, for instance. His landmark deals over the past year, they include the United Arab Emirates' $30 billion investment in January, and also recently some $5.9 billion of investment by US firms last month during his state visit to America. Now, Yoon's also identified a niche market in defense exports as the country recorded over $17 billion last year. It saw demand really grow globally amid Russia's invasion of Ukraine.
Right. And on to the diplomatic front, the president's foreign policy vision, right, making Korea a global pivotal state, known as a GPS. What does that mean?
Well, it means increasing Korea's presence and its role in global governance, reflective of its economic prowess and its values as a liberal democracy. Now, President Yoon's been emphasizing shared values, and he's really aligned himself much more closely with the United States, particularly this year in the 70th year of their military alliance. And not only has he strengthened the allies' joint deterrence against North Korea with the new Washington Declaration, which includes a new nuclear consultative group with the US, but he's also extended efforts to mend ties with Japan after their bilateral ties hit a critical low in 2019 over historical disputes. Now, these moves are not only intended to strengthen South Korea's traditional security, its cooperation with Washington and Tokyo in the region, but also to jointly tackle new transnational challenges. That's why President Yoon also issued South Korea's own Indo-Pacific strategy, as well as voicing more support for initiatives to preserve freedom, democracy and human rights in the world, speaking out about Ukraine, for instance. And he joined America's semiconductor supply chain network as well last year. Now, none of these moves have really pleased Beijing, which is South Korea's largest trade partner, but it seems that President Yoon sees this as a very necessary move for South Korea's future.
치열한 지정학적 경쟁과 다층적 국제관계 속에서 우리 대한민국이 세계 평화와 번영의 허브 역할을 수행해 나갈 것입니다. 이렇게 하는 것이 우리의 안보와 경제, 기업과 국민 모두에게 필요하고 유익한 것임은 더 말할 나위가 없습니다.
Now, lastly, 1 year into the Yongsan era, making Korea the global pivotal state, that agenda, and now public support for President Yoon has been very divided. So what's next for President Yoon then?
Right, so, well, globally speaking, President Yoon's speeches at the US Congress, Harvard University, they gained recognition and accolades, especially from US officials, including President Biden and State Secretary Antony Blinken on South Korea becoming a global pivotal state. However, at home, like you said, both his domestic and foreign policy agendas have been rather sensitive to domestic political conflicts and, of course, some of his diplomatic stunts over the past year, which have been criticized. According to a survey released on Tuesday, 37.5% of 1,000 survey respondents approve of his performance so far. And there's been comparatively greater support for his defense and foreign policies, as 7 out of 10 people are worried about national security. Followed by Yoon's science, health and cultural policies. Meanwhile, the biggest reason for respondents' disapproval of his term was the economy. Now, President Yoon has been addressing day-to-day social and economic issues, of course, tackling property rental scams, declaring a war on drugs, and also trying to keep phone and utility bills affordable. But it seems that the public wants to see more tangible policies on reviving the local economy as well as creating jobs. They also want to see greater social unity, followed by a clearer public messaging.
Right. 1 year indeed flew by.
It has indeed.
Right. All right, let's wrap it up here. Thanks for coming in today, Soo-young.
Thanks for having me, Tammy.